Hi! Today, we're diving into forecasting, risk, and scheduling for Medivance Diagnostics, which is developing a new line of portable scanners. However, the R&D project has uncertain timelines, interdependent tasks, and regulatory risk factors. Historical failure data shows that there are average of 2 breakdowns of machine testing failure per month, and 70% yet of funding approval success. On the other hand, the following are the data of Medivance. Medivance is developing a new diagnostic scanner. Each project phase has an uncertain duration. To address the challenges, Medivance needs to predict R&D timelines, weigh funding risks, account for equipment failures, and assess the chances of hitting launch dates. Here are the core concepts to help evaluate management needs for the Medivance case. In terms of forecasting R&D completion time given uncertain task durations, it's essential to understand the 3 time estimates it employs to effectively use PERT in project management. Optimistic time, pessimistic time, and most likely time are the estimates for getting the task done. These estimates help calculate an average expected duration, facilitating better planning and scheduling, especially in uncertain situations. Check out this PERT chart. It's a handy tool for project management that maps out tasks from start to finish. Design takes about 4 weeks. Prototyping needs 5.5 weeks. Regulatory testing is 6 weeks, and marketing prep wraps up in 3.2 weeks. Tasks B and C can only kick off after Task A is done, and Task D jumps in once both B and C are complete. There are 2 ways to get through the network. Path 1 is A gives B gives D, and Path 2 is A gives T. Path 2 takes 12.17 weeks, making it the longest and the critical path. The PERT chart for this project lays out a network of tasks with their expected durations and dependencies. We've got Task A, design taking about 4 weeks, Task B, prototype at 5.33 weeks, Task C, regulatory test needing 6 weeks, and Task D, marketing prep coming in at 3.17 weeks. The critical path runs A greater than C greater than D, totaling around 13.17 weeks. To answer the question, which forecasting and project scheduling methods could be integrated to predict completion dates under uncertainty? To predict project completion dates under uncertainty, we can mix PERT, Monte Carlo simulation, and fuzzy logic. PERT gives us time estimates for tasks, which Monte Carlo uses to create a range of possible completion dates. Fuzzy logic helps tackle uncertainties in task durations. Overall, PERT is most suitable for uncertain projects like R&D, where exact task times are difficult to predict. Next concept, we will be using the utility theory to evaluate the decision alternatives under funding risk. Under conditions of uncertainty, managers don't only think about profits, they also think about risk and satisfaction. That's what utility theory measures. The utility theory will assist Medivance's management in evaluating decision alternatives, such as fast-tracking the project or minimizing cost risk. Fast-tracking aims to increase speed, but incurs higher costs and investments. Conversely, a slower approach minimizes costs and revenue while ensuring safety through careful progress. This table illustrates the use of utility theory to assess 2 strategies: fast-track and minimize cost. Risk by assigning probabilities and utility values for outcomes, measured on a 0 to 1 scale of satisfaction. The fast-track option has higher uncertainty, while the cost-minimize option is more stable but less ambitious. Fast-tracking the project scores 0.84 in expected utility, while minimizing cost risk scores 0.73. Risk-tolerant and neutral managers might go for fast-tracking to capture the market early, while risk-averse ones prefer stability and lower uncertainty. When we examined variability, we discovered the standard deviation of utilities. Fast-tracking the project results in a standard deviation of 0.27. While minimizing costs shows a standard deviation of 0.09. This indicates that the fast-tracked project is more uncertain, whereas the cost minimization approach is more stable. For this analysis, we assume that Medivance's management is risk-averse, prioritizing stability and certainty over high-risk, high-reward options. In the medical device industry, avoiding major project failures or funding losses is crucial to protect deadlines, reputation, and regulatory approvals. Unlike a risk-neutral or risk-seeking stance, a risk-averse approach strikes a balance between profitability and stability, making the decision-making process more realistic and practical for Medivance. To answer the question, How could utility theory help prioritize between fast-tracking the project and minimizing cost risk? Utility theory helps Medivance's managers choose between speeding up a project and cutting costs. Instead of just focusing on profits, they look at overall satisfaction. By weighing the expected utility of each option, they can pick what aligns with their risk tolerance and feels right for the company. Next up, we're diving into how to model random equipment failures while testing and using linear programming for the Medivance Diagnostics project. This is a big deal since it's a key risk area for portable medical scanners. I'll show you how probability models can help us predict and tackle equipment breakdowns. In risk modeling, we treat equipment failures as random, unpredictable events. The Poisson distribution allows us to estimate how many failures might occur in a given period, based on an average failure rate. In the Medivance case, the testing machines fail an average of 2 times per month. That's our key parameter, or lambda. The Poisson model shows the chances of failures each month. For Medivance, with an average of 2 failures, there's a 13.5% chance of none, 27% for one, and another 27% for two. These stats help us predict disruption levels. These probabilities help managers plan ahead. Expect about 1 or 2 failures each month, so Medivance should factor that into the schedule. If there's a chance of 3 or more failures, have spare equipment ready. We can use the Poisson model in PERT or CPM scheduling. If testing takes 6 weeks and each failure delays us by 2 days, we can adjust the timeline for a more realistic project schedule. Once risks are figured out, managers can make smart moves. Regular maintenance cuts failure chances, and a backup machine might cost more now but saves time later. It's all about balancing costs and reliability. Modeling random failures isn't just a standalone thing. It works with forecasting risks, adjusting schedules, assigning maintenance resources, and making smart decisions for a solid project management strategy. By applying quantitative risk modeling, Medivance supports SDG 9 and SDG 11. The approach promotes innovation while ensuring reliability and sustainability. It also develops modern managerial skills, critical thinking, creativity, and collaboration, essential in solving complex, real-world problems. To conclude, modeling random equipment failures helps Medivance better manage uncertainty during the testing phase. Using the Poisson model, the company can estimate failure probabilities, anticipate delays, and make informed scheduling and resource decisions. This not only improves project performance but also strengthens the reliability of the company's innovation process. Let's talk about how Medivance Diagnostics uses integer linear programming, or ILP, to make smart project management choices. It's all about getting the best use of our resources, manpower, budget, and time. Integer linear programming, or ILP, is a way to optimize decisions using whole numbers. It helps Medivance assign engineers to projects efficiently, making sure they don't exceed capacity or cause delays while keeping costs down. It's all about smart resource allocation. An ELP model has 3 main components. First, the objective function, which defines what we want to achieve, for example, minimizing project cost or total duration. Next up, we've got constraints, which are limits like resources or task dependencies. Plus, remember, assignments need to be whole numbers. You can't have half an engineer. That's why ILP is super handy for real-world scheduling. ELP is crucial for Medivance. We've got 4 tasks: design, prototype, regulatory test, and marketing prep. Each needs specific engineers, and ILP helps us assign our 5 efficiently. Here are the results from Medivance's project using integer linear programming. We assigned engineers to tasks while sticking to resource limits in order. The plan kicks off with Task A for 4 weeks, then Tasks B and C run side by side. Task B wraps up by week 9, Task C by week 10, and Task D finishes by week 13. Overall, the project takes 13 weeks, making the most of our resources with no delays. We set up an ILP model and run it through a solver like Excel or Python's Pulp. The solver plays around with resource assignments to meet all the constraints and gives us the best solution. This helps Medivance decide how many engineers to assign to tasks for timely and cost-effective project completion. ELP teams up with methods like PERT and CPM to handle task dependencies. It helps forecast resource needs, balance time and cost, and manage risks like machine failures. From a managerial standpoint, ILP offers a clear advantage. It gives a solid way to assign resources without guesswork. By optimizing project schedules, EOP helps Medivance stay ahead in innovation while balancing time, manpower, and budget. To conclude, integer linear programming is a powerful tool that helps Medivance optimize resources within project constraints. It helps with smart planning, cuts costs, and keeps projects on track. EOP teams up with models like PERT for better decisions. In this section, we evaluate the probability of meeting our market launch deadlines using statistical modeling and risk analysis. We looked at key factors like task completion rates and risks of delays. By using Monte Carlo simulations and past data, we can better predict if we'll hit our launch date and see where we need to focus on risk management. To answer the question, how can PERT, CPM be combined with probability distributions, binomial or completion dates under uncertainty? We can totally mix PERT CPM with probability distributions like binomial or Poisson by using PERT's time estimates in a network diagram. This lets you figure out the expected project duration and variance. PERT usually uses a beta distribution for task durations, but pairing it with other distributions helps Medivance assess risks better, especially for project delays. Just sum up the variances on the critical path to get the overall standard deviation, then use tools like the z-score to check the chances of finishing on time. Here's how we figure out expected task durations using the PERT formula. It helps us nail down project timelines by tackling the uncertainty of task completion. We look at 3 time estimates: optimistic, most likely, and pessimistic. For Task A design, we estimate 2 weeks optimistic, 4 weeks most likely, and 6 weeks pessimistic, giving us an expected duration of 4 weeks. Task B prototype, which relies on Task A, is about 5.33 weeks. Task C regulatory test is around 4.67 weeks, and Task D marketing prep is about 3.17 weeks. These estimates guide us on the overall project timeline and our shot at hitting the launch date. We've crunched the numbers for our task durations. And now it's time to map out the network structure and find the critical path, the longest chain of dependent tasks that sets our project's minimum completion time. We've got 2 main paths. Path 1 is A gives B gives D, taking 12.5 weeks, and Path 2 is A gives C gives D, which takes 13.17 weeks. Since Path 2 is longer, it's our critical path. Any delays in A, C, or D will push back the whole project. We figured out the critical path and calculated the project's variance to see how uncertain the timeline is. For the PERT analysis, we added up the variances for tasks A, C, and D, which gives us about 1.06 weeks of variability. This helps us gauge our chances of hitting the market launch deadline. We're eyeing a 15-week target for Medivance Diagnostics launch. Using the PERT method, we estimate about 13.17 weeks to finish, with a solid 95.8% chance of hitting that deadline. Just remember, some unexpected bumps could come up. Overall, we're looking good to meet our launch timeline. Next, we'll tweak our project timeline to factor in possible equipment failures, using a Poisson model since breakdowns are random. With an average of 2 breakdowns monthly, each delays testing by a day. So over 3 months, we're looking at about a 1.2-week delay, making the new timeline roughly 14.37 weeks. Funding approval is crucial for the market launch. We've got a solid 70% chance of getting the green light on the first try. If we nail the project in 15 weeks and secure that funding, we're looking at about a 67% chance of hitting our launch date. So we really need to keep an eye on that funding risk. Let's break down how uncertainties might mess with our deadlines. For task uncertainty, we estimated using a PERT distribution, giving us a solid 95.8% chance of wrapping up in 15 weeks if all goes well. Equipment failures? Those are tricky, adding about 1.2 weeks of delay. Funding risks have a 70% approval chance, dropping our odds of meeting the deadline to around 67%. Our overall forecast helps managers spot the biggest risks and know where to focus their efforts. We've talked about the basics, so here's the scoop. Our PERT forecast gives us a solid 96% chance of hitting the launch deadline if everything goes perfectly. But with real-world hiccups like equipment issues and funding delays, that drops to about 67%. To keep things on track, Medivance should add a 1 to 2 week buffer, boost maintenance, and explore backup funding. These moves will help ensure a successful launch, even if things get tricky. Project management tools really work together. Forecasting helps us predict costs and time, which feeds into the PERT model for scheduling. Probability models handle risks, while utility theory helps pick the best options based on time and cost. Lastly, linear programming optimizes resources. Together, they make planning and resource allocation smoother. Here's how to turn those ideas into real actions for Medivance. For policy, skip the strict deadlines and go for flexible planning. It makes timelines way more realistic. In decision-making, Medivance should balance speed and reliability using expected utility theory. For operations, integer linear programming can boost efficiency. And for risk management, keep updating risk assessments with new data. These strategies help Medivance make smart, data-driven choices. To conclude, we want to highlight one key message. Quantitative tools don't just solve problems. They guide smarter, evidence-based decisions. Through these models, Medivance can make decisions that are not only data-driven but also aligned with its goals and risk appetite. Thank you.